I sent my parents a wedding invitation, but instead, they received legal papers demanding a lifetime debt repayment. Revenge was sweet when they realized who had helped me all along. I stared at the worn leather photo album, my fingers tracing the outline of a family portrait where my brother Therese stood front and center, his soccer trophy gleaming. I was relegated to the edge, barely visible, like always. The memory of that day still burns. It was the same afternoon I discovered my college savings account had been drained. My name is Sophia, and I'm about to get married in 3 weeks. But instead of feeling the typical pre-wedding jitters, I'm plotting something that will change my family forever. Sophia, honey, have you finished the seating arrangements? My fiancé, Patrick, called from the kitchen. His voice snapped me out of my bitter reminiscence. Almost, I replied, closing the album with more force than necessary. Just trying to figure out where to put my parents. Patrick appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. You know, we could just not invite them. I shook my head. No. They need to be there. They need to see everything. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. It was Paris, my best friend since college, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing her signature concerned expression. Spill it, she said, settling onto my couch. Your text sounded urgent. I pulled out an envelope from my desk drawer, cream-colored expensive paper with elegant gold lettering. I received this yesterday from Aunt Stella. Paris's eyes widened. The infamous Aunt Stella? The one your parents never talk about? The very same. I handed her the invitation. She wants to meet me for lunch tomorrow, says she has an opportunity to discuss. Your parents will flip if they find out, Paris warned, pouring 3 glasses of wine. They're too busy fawning over Tyrese's latest coaching gig to notice what I'm doing, I said, the bitterness seeping into my voice. Did you know they took $50,000 from my college fund for his training program in Europe? Patrick sat down beside me, his hand finding mine. Tell them about the scholarship letter. I took a deep breath. Yesterday, I found a letter from 2015 in Dad's old office files. I'd won a full scholarship to architecture school, but they never told me. They let me believe I had to take out loans because my college fund was empty. Paris nearly choked on her wine. Are you serious? Dead serious? They hid it because they thought architecture was a man's profession and wanted me to pursue teaching instead. I stood up, pacing the room. All those nights, I worked double shifts at the cafe. All those years of crushing student debt, and I had a full ride waiting for me. What are you going to do? Paris asked. I picked up Aunt Stella's invitation again. That's what tomorrow's about. Stella was always different from the rest of the family. She built her own business, never married, lives life on her terms. They called her the black sheep, but maybe she was just the only one brave enough to break free. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Don't forget, Tyrese's game is this Sunday. The whole family needs to be there to support him. I showed the message to Paris and Patrick. 7 years after graduating, and I'm still invisible. I landed the Richardson project last week, the biggest sustainable design contract our firm has seen. And when I told them, Mom just asked if I'd bought my brother a wedding gift yet. Sophia, Patrick said softly. Whatever you're planning with Stella tomorrow, I'm with you. Paris nodded in agreement. Me too. It's time they realized what they've done. I walked to the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. I used to think if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, they'd finally see me. But now I understand. They never will. Not unless I make them. The invitation felt heavy in my hand, like it carried the weight of all my suppressed anger and hurt. Tomorrow, I would meet the aunt I'd been warned about my entire life, the woman who dared to challenge the family's suffocating traditions. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Have you started looking into teaching positions yet? It's not too late to change careers, dear. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank statements from 2015, the ones showing the sudden disappearance of my savings. Next to it, I placed the hidden scholarship letter. 7 years of receipts, documents, and proof of their betrayal, all meticulously preserved. Paris, I said, turning to my best friend. Remember when you said revenge is a dish best served cold? She nodded, a slow smile spreading across her face. Well, I think it's time to take it out of the freezer. I picked up Stella's invitation one more time. Tomorrow, I start planning the wedding of their dreams and their worst nightmare. Patrick wrapped his arms around me from behind. Are you sure about this? I leaned back into his embrace, watching our reflection in the window. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. As if on cue, my phone lit up with one final text from Mom. Don't forget, family always comes first, Sophia. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Oh, Mom, I whispered. You have no idea how right you are. The cafe Stella chose was nothing like I expected. No pretentious wine list or white tablecloths. Instead, it was a cozy corner spot with mismatched furniture and the smell of fresh coffee. I arrived 15 minutes early, but she was already there. "You look just like your mother did at your age," Stella said, standing to greet me, except for the eyes. "You've got the Jackson fire in them." I studied her as we sat down. Stella wore a crisp blazer over jeans, her silver hair cut in a sharp bob. She looked successful, confident, everything my parents had tried to convince me she wasn't. "I have to admit," I said, "I was surprised to get your invitation." Stella smiled, sliding a folder across the table. "I've been following your work, Sophia. The sustainable housing project on 4th Street. Brilliant design." I nearly dropped my coffee. "You know about that?" "I know about all of it. Your graduation with honors, the Innovation Award last year, and how you did it all while working nights to pay off loans that shouldn't have existed." Her eyes narrowed. "I also know about the scholarship." "How did you?" "Because I was on the selection committee." Stella leaned forward. "I voted for your application, but when the acceptance letter came back unopened, I knew Lucy and Carl had interfered." The waitress arrived with our food, giving me a moment to process this revelation. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were newspaper clippings, project photos, and reviews of my work. She'd been tracking my career from the beginning. "Why now?" I asked. "Why reach out after all these years?" "Because I'm about to retire, and I need someone to take over my firm." Stella took a sip of her coffee. "Someone with vision, talent, and a score to settle." I nearly choked on my sandwich. "Your firm? You mean Jackson Sustainable Architecture?" "The very same. Currently managing projects worth over $50 million. She pulled out another document. "I'm offering you a partnership. Immediate 50% stake with full ownership transfer in 5 years. My mind raced. JSA was one of the leading sustainable architecture firms in the region. The same firm I'd been trying to land an interview with for months. "There's a catch, isn't there?" Stella's expression hardened. "The catch is that your parents will fight this with everything they have. They'll try to convince you it's too risky, that you're not ready. They'll probably even offer to help Tyrese buy the firm instead." "They can't stop me," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "I'm not that invisible little girl anymore." "No, you're not." Stella pulled out one final document. "This is a detailed record of every penny they took from your account, with interest calculated to present day. The total comes to just over $87,000. I stared at the numbers, feeling sick. That would have covered my entire education. Yes, it would have. Stella's voice softened. "Sophia, I'm not just offering you a business partnership, I'm offering you a chance to take back what's yours." "The wedding?" I whispered, the plan forming in my mind. "They're expecting me to play the perfect daughter, to finally fall in line with their expectations. Instead, they'll receive a legal notice demanding repayment." Stella's smile was sharp. "Along with the announcement of our partnership, they'll disown me. Probably. The question is, are you ready for that?" I thought about all the family dinners where my achievements were ignored, all the times Mom pushed teaching applications my way, all the years of watching Tyrese receive everything while I struggled for scraps. "What about Tyrese?" I asked. "He's not the one who took my money." "No. But he benefited from it. Sometimes innocent people get caught in the crossfire." Stella's eyes met mine. "That's the price of revolution, Sophia. Are you willing to pay it?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest text from Mom. "Found some great elementary teaching positions. Sending links now." "Architecture is so unstable, dear. When do we start?" I asked. Stella handed me a pen. "Right now. But remember, once you sign these papers, there's no going back. Your parents will never forgive this betrayal." "Betrayal?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like hiding my scholarship, like stealing my savings, like crushing my dreams every chance they got. I signed the partnership agreement with steady hands. "Welcome to JSA," Stella said, gathering the papers. "Now about your wedding, I assume you'll want to make it memorable?" "Oh, it will be." I pulled out my wedding planner. "They're expecting the perfect daughter to have the perfect traditional wedding. Instead, they'll get served legal papers between the cake cutting and the first dance. You understand this will burn every bridge?" I thought about the photo album at home, about all those pictures where I was pushed to the edge, barely visible. "Some bridges," I said, "deserved a burn." As we left the cafe, Stella squeezed my shoulder. "Get ready for war, Sophia, because that's exactly what this is going to be." For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, and I was ready for battle. "And if we adjust the solar panels here," I pointed to the 3D model on my tablet, "we can increase efficiency by 30% while maintaining the aesthetic appeal." The clients nodded approvingly as I walked them through the design. 6 months into my partnership with Stella, and I was already leading our biggest project yet, a sustainable community center that would redefine green architecture in the city. Impressive work, Stella said after the clients left. You've exceeded every expectation I had. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. Mom, again. Darling, we need to discuss the wedding menu. Your father insists on traditional choices, none of that vegetarian nonsense. Speaking of expectations, I muttered, showing Stella the message. 2 weeks until the wedding, she reminded me. Are the papers ready? I patted my desk drawer, all prepared. Patrick's lawyer reviewed everything yesterday. The intercom buzzed. Sophia, your brother Tyrese is here to see you. My heart stopped. I hadn't seen Tyrese since announcing my engagement 6 months ago. Stella squeezed my shoulder before leaving the office. Tyrese walked in, looking uncomfortable in his coaching outfit. Nice office, sis. Really nice. What are you doing here, Tyrese? He sat down, fidgeting with his car keys. Mom and Dad don't know I'm here. They think I'm at a training session. Of course they do. I kept my voice neutral. What do you want? I saw the announcement in the business section. You and Aunt Stella. He leaned forward. Sophia, do you know what you're doing? You mean succeeding, building something meaningful, or are you worried I'm not teaching kindergarten like Mom wanted? That's not fair. Teresa's face flushed. I never asked them to favor me. No. You just accepted everything they gave you, my everything. He fell silent, staring at the awards displayed on my wall. I didn't know about the scholarship, Sophia. I swear. But you knew about my savings. I pulled out the bank statements. You knew where your European training money came from. I was 19. His voice cracked. They said you agreed to it, that you wanted to help your little brother achieve his dreams. And you believed them? I stood up, walking to the window. Did you ever once ask me? I'm asking now. Tyrese joined me at the window. What are you planning, Sophia? Mom's been crying about how you're pulling away, how you won't let her help with the wedding. I laughed. Help? You mean control? Did she tell you she tried to change my venue booking to her church, or that she's been calling my caterer behind my back? She means, well, stop defending them. I spun around. Just once, Tyrese, whose side are you really on? He stepped back, surprised by my outburst. There shouldn't be sides in a family. There have always been sides. I was just too blind to see it before. I returned to my desk, pulling up the community center designs. Look at this. Really look, this is who I am, what I was meant to do. Not teaching, not being the perfect daughter they wanted. Tyrese studied the designs, his expression softening. This is incredible, Sophia. But why Aunt Stella? You know what that will do to Mom and Dad? Because she saw me. Really saw me. I met his eyes. When was the last time they actually saw either of us, Tyrese? Not as extensions of their expectations, but as people. He sank into the chair, suddenly looking tired. The coaching job, it's not what I wanted, never was. But they'd invested so much. Their money, my money. I softened my tone. It's not too late to change paths, you know, maybe. He stood up, heading for the door. Just whatever you're planning for the wedding, be careful. They're already suspicious about your success here. Tyrese? I called, as he reached the door. When it happens, remember this conversation. He paused. When what happens, you'll see. I turned back to my work. Give Mom my love, tell her the menu stays as planned. After he left, Stella returned. Everything okay? I pulled out the legal documents from my drawer. He suspects something, but he won't warn them. How can you be sure? Because for the first time I saw my brother instead of their golden child. I added the final signature to the papers. He's as trapped as I was. My phone buzzed again. A text from Patrick. Wedding planner called. Your mom tried to change the flowers to traditional roses. I smiled, typing back. Tell her the sustainable wildflower arrangements stay. 2 weeks until showtime. Stella picked up the legal documents, checking the signatures. You know, there's still time to back out. We could find another way. I looked around my office. My designs on the walls, my awards on display, my name on the door. Everything I'd achieved despite them, not because of them. No, I said firmly. They chose their path 15 years ago when they stole my future. Now I'm choosing mine. The sun was setting over the city, casting long shadows across my office. In 2 weeks I would walk down the aisle, but not as the daughter they expected. I would walk as myself, finally unapologetically myself, and they would never see it coming. They're here, Paris whispered, nudging me as my parents walked into the restaurant. 1 week before the wedding, and they'd insisted on this family dinner. Mom was clutching her ever-present wedding planning folder like a shield. "Sophia darling." Mom air kissed my cheek. "We have so much to discuss." The church called again about changing the venue. "The venue is final, Mom." I signaled the waiter for wine. "Everything is final." Dad settled into his chair, frowning at Patrick. "Still time to reconsider the prenup, son. Family money needs protection." "What family money?" I muttered, earning a sharp look from Mom. Patrick squeezed my hand under the table. "Actually, Carl, we've handled all the legal aspects already." Without consulting us, Mom's voice rose an octave. "Sophia, that's not how things are done in this family." The waiter arrived with wine, providing a brief respite from the tension. I watched Mom flip through her folder, marking pages with sticky notes. "Now, about the seating arrangement," she continued. "I've moved your Aunt Stella to the back corner. We can't have her making a scene." "Stella stays at the main table," I interrupted. "She's my business partner." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's knuckles turned white around his water glass. "Business partner?" He leaned forward. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means I'm now co-owner of Jackson Sustainable Architecture." I met his gaze steadily. "Has been for 6 months." Mom's folder slipped from her hands, scattering papers across the floor. "That woman has poisoned your mind. First architecture, now this? When will you stop fighting your natural path?" "My natural path?" I laughed. "You mean like teaching? Or maybe you'd prefer I just stay home and plan dinner parties?" "Sophia," Patrick warned softly, but I was beyond stopping. "Did you know," I continued, "that Therese came to see me last week? He told me something interesting about his coaching career." "Leave your brother out of this," Dad snapped. "Why?" "Because he might tell me how miserable he is. How he never wanted to be a coach in the first place." Mom's face paled. "That's not true. Tyrese loves coaching. We invested everything in his career." "My everything," I corrected. "My savings, my scholarship." "We did what was best for the family," Dad insisted. "Someone had to have a reliable career." Patrick stood up suddenly. "I need some air. Sophia?" I followed him to the restaurant's terrace, leaving my parents to stew. The night air was cool against my flushed cheeks. "You okay?" Patrick asked, pulling me close. "They still don't see it." I pressed my face into his shoulder. "They still think they did nothing wrong." "Are you having second thoughts about the wedding plan?" I pulled back, looking at the city lights. "No. But I'm scared, Patrick. What if this breaks everything beyond repair? Some things need to break to be rebuilt properly." He turned me to face him. "Like those old buildings you renovate, sometimes the foundation is too rotten to save." Through the window, I could see Mom reorganizing her scattered papers, probably still trying to control every aspect of my wedding. Dad was on his phone, likely calling Tyrese to demand explanations. "They're going to be blindsided," I whispered. "Good." Patrick's voice was firm. "Maybe that's what they need." Paris appeared at the terrace door. "Your mom's talking about changing the flowers again. Want me to run interference?" I shook my head. "Let her try. The florist has strict instructions to only take changes from me or Patrick." "Smart girl." Paris grinned. "Oh, and Stella called. The papers are being delivered to your lawyer tomorrow." My stomach churned. 1 week. In 1 week, everything would change. We returned to find Mom in full planning mode, ignoring our earlier confrontation. "Now about your dress, darling. I've scheduled another fitting. The dress is perfect as is." I cut her off. "Everything is exactly as I want it, but the tradition isn't mine to follow." I gathered my purse. "Patrick and I have an early meeting tomorrow. Thanks for dinner." Dad stood up. "Sophia, wait. Whatever Stella's promised you, whatever she's told you about the past, she's manipulating you." I turned back, feeling oddly calm. "No, Dad, that's what you and Mom did. Stella just showed me the truth." "The truth?" Mom scoffed. "The truth is you're throwing away everything we've built for you." "No," I said softly, "I'm building something of my own for the first time in my life." As we left the restaurant, I could hear Mom already on the phone, probably calling the church again. Some habits die hard. 1 week, Patrick said as we drove home. 1 week, I agreed, touching the legal documents in my bag. Then they'll finally understand what it feels like to have everything taken away. The city lights blurred past us, and I thought about foundations, the ones my parents built on lies, and the new ones I was creating for myself. Some things really do need to break before they can be rebuilt, and I was ready to swing the wrecking ball. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" The lawyer slid the final set of documents across his desk. 3 days until the wedding, and my hands shook as I signed the last page. "I'm sure." I handed him the special envelope from my parents. This needs to be delivered exactly as we discussed. During the reception, after the first dance, he nodded, tucking it into his briefcase. Miss Stella has arranged for security, just in case. My phone buzzed. Tyrese calling. I'd been avoiding him since his office visit, but something made me answer. Sophia, we need to talk. His voice was urgent. Mom's planning something for the wedding. I stepped out of the lawyer's office into the hallway. What do you mean? She's been making calls talking about saving you from yourself. I overheard her telling Dad that she won't let you ruin your life, like Stella did. My stomach dropped. Did you hear anything specific? No, but Sophia, he paused. Whatever you're planning, they're ready for it, or at least they think they are. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. Thanks for the warning. Are you ever going to tell me what's really going on? You'll find out at the wedding. Just remember what we talked about in my office. After hanging up, I called Stella immediately. She answered on the first ring. They're plotting something, I said without preamble. Of course they are. Stella sounded unsurprised. Lucy never could handle losing control. Come to the office now. 30 minutes later, I sat in Stella's office while she paced, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. We need to adjust the timeline, she said. Move everything up. The documents need to be delivered during the ceremony, not the reception. During the ceremony? I stared at her. That's so public dramatic. Perfect. Stella stopped pacing. They're expecting something at the reception. They'll be prepared, composed, ready to counter whatever we do. But during the ceremony, the door opened and Paris rushed in, out of breath. You need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. It was a social media post from Mom. So blessed to be planning my daughter's perfect traditional wedding. Can't wait to welcome her back to the path God intended. Reich's prodigal daughter, Reich family first. Back to the path? I scrolled through the comments. She's making it sound like I'm some lost soul being saved. Classic Lucy, Stella muttered. She's setting the narrative. When you make your move, she'll play the heartbroken mother trying to save her misguided daughter. Paris sat down beside me. There's more. She's invited every conservative family friend she knows. The guest list has grown by 30 people. She's building an audience, I realized. Stacking the deck with people who'll take her side, Stella pulled out her phone. Time to fight fire with fire. I'm calling the lawyer. The documents will be delivered right after you say, I do. Maximum impact, minimum time for them to recover. Won't that ruin the ceremony? Paris asked. I laughed bitterly. The ceremony? You mean the traditional spectacle they've turned my wedding into? Let it burn. My phone buzzed again. Mom, darling, I've invited the Reverend to dinner tonight. He has concerns about your modern ceremony choices. Please be there. We only want what's best for you. What's best for me? I showed them the message. They've had 29 years to show me what's best for me. Now it's my turn. Stella nodded approvingly. The student becomes the master. I'm not going to dinner, I decided. Let them sit there with their reverend and plot. They have no idea what's coming. Paris hugged me. Want me to come over tonight? We can do final dress alterations and drink wine. Actually, I said, I need to write something. I pulled out my laptop. The documents are one thing, but they need to hear the truth. All of it. Stella sat down across from me. A letter? My own narrative. I began typing. Every scholarship they hid, every dream they crushed, every dollar they stole. They want to talk about paths? Fine. Let's talk about the path they forced me down, and the one I chose for myself. For the next hour, I wrote while Stella and Paris handled calls, finalizing the new timeline. The words flowed easily, years of suppressed truth finally finding their voice. As the sun set, I printed the final version. 3 copies, one for Mom, one for Dad, and one to be read aloud at the ceremony. Sophia, Stella said softly, reading over my shoulder. This will destroy them. No, I corrected, sealing the envelopes. They destroyed themselves the moment they decided their daughter was a possession to be controlled, rather than a person to be loved. My phone lit up with another message from Mom. Where are you? The Reverend is waiting. Please don't embarrass us again. I turned off my phone and stood up, gathering my things. 3 days until the wedding, 3 days until the truth exploded in their faces. Let them wait, I said. They've made me wait my entire life. You look stunning, Paris whispered, adjusting my veil. The sustainable silk draped perfectly over my modern dress, nothing like the traditional gown Mom had tried to force on me. Through the chapel door, I could hear the guests arriving. Mom's voice carried above the others. playing her role as the proud mother of the bride. Places, everyone. The wedding coordinator clapped her hands. 5 minutes. Stella appeared, resplendent in her maid of honor dress. The lawyer's in position. Your parents have no idea he's here. My hands trembled as I smoothed my dress. Did you see their faces when you walked in as my maid of honor? Lucy nearly fainted. Stella smirked. Carl's still trying to convince people I crashed the wedding. Paris peeked through the door. Full house. Your mom really did invite every conservative family friend in the state. Perfect. I took a deep breath. The bigger the audience, the better. The music started. Not the traditional wedding march Mom wanted, but a modern string quartet arrangement I'd chosen. Dad appeared at the door, his face tight with barely concealed disapproval. Last chance, he muttered as he took my arm. We can still stop this nonsense. You're right, Dad. I patted his hand. The nonsense stops today. The doors opened. I saw Patrick waiting at the altar, his smile genuine and warm. Mom sat in the front row, beaming artificially, her wedding planning folder clutched in her lap even now. Tyrese was beside her, looking uncomfortable in his suit. As we walked down the aisle, I caught snippets of whispered conversations. Such a traditional ceremony after all. Lucy must be so relieved. Finally giving up that architecture nonsense, Dad handed me off to Patrick with a stiff nod. The minister began his speech, but I barely heard him. I was watching the lawyer slip quietly into position near the front pew. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in matrimony, Mom shifted in her seat, and I saw her hand twitch toward her folder. This was the moment she'd planned for, her last chance to save me. Speak now or forever. Hold your peace. The silence stretched for 1 heartbeat. 2. Mom's hand stilled, then by the power vested in me. Patrick squeezed my hands, giving me the signal. This was it. I do, I said clearly, my voice carrying through the chapel. I do, Patrick echoed. Then I now pronounce you. Actually, I turned to face the congregation, cutting off the minister. Before we conclude, I have something to say. Mom's face froze in her camera-ready smile. Dad started to stand but stopped when Stella moved closer to me. Many of you are here today because my mother told you I was returning to the traditional path. I unfolded my letter. She told you I was being saved. She's right about one thing. Today is about salvation, my own. The lawyer stepped forward, holding the envelopes. Mom's smile cracked. Sophia, she warned. Don't you dare. When I was 18, I continued, my voice stronger. My parents stole my college fund to finance my brother's sports career. They hid my full scholarship to architecture school. They tried to force me into a life I never wanted. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Tyrese looked at the floor, shoulders hunched. Today, I'm not just marrying the love of my life. I nodded to the lawyer who began distributing the documents. I'm reclaiming what was stolen from me. Mom ripped open her envelope, her face draining of color. This is a legal demand for repayment, I finished. Every dollar you took with interest, plus damages for the hidden scholarship. You ungrateful. Dad started to shout, but Tyrese grabbed his arm. That's not all. I turned to Stella. I'm also announcing my partnership in Jackson Sustainable Architecture, the firm you always warned me about. I'm now co-owner. The whispers turned to shocked murmurs. Mom stood up, her perfectly composed facade cracking completely. You planned this, she hissed. You turned our daughter against us. No, Mom. I stepped down from the altar. You did that yourself. Every time you dismissed my dreams, every time you chose Tyrese over me, every time you tried to force me into your perfect little box. Security, Stella called softly, and 2 men appeared at the ends of the aisle. You're making a scene, Dad growled, trying to approach me. No, Patrick said, stepping between us. You made the scene for 29 years. Now you get to watch your daughter choose her own path. I turned back to the minister. Please continue with the ceremony. Sophia, please. Mom's voice cracked. We can fix this. We can. No, Mom. You can't fix this, but you can pay for it. I faced Patrick again. Shall we finish getting married? The minister, looking slightly shell-shocked, cleared his throat. By the power vested in me, as he pronounced us husband and wife, I heard Mom collapse into her seat, sobbing theatrically. Dad was still staring at the legal documents, his face purple with rage. But for the first time in my life, their reactions didn't matter. I kissed Patrick as the string quartet played, and in that moment, I was finally completely free. The war was over and I had won. The reception hall buzzed with conflicting energy. Half the guests celebrating, the other half huddled in shocked clusters, whispering about the ceremony's dramatic turn. I stood with Patrick near the cake, accepting congratulations from those who weren't too scandalized to approach. Sophia, Tyrese's voice came from behind me. We need to talk now. I followed him to a quiet corner, Patrick's supportive gaze following us. Tyrese looked different, older somehow, the weight of the day evident in his stance. Did you know? I asked before he could speak. About the scholarship? No. He ran a hand through his hair. But I knew something was wrong. The way they pushed me into coaching, the constant pressure to succeed, I thought it was just their dream for me. It was their dream, all right, funded by my future. I should have asked questions. He leaned against the wall, but they had an answer for everything. When I wanted to study literature instead of sports management, Dad said we couldn't afford 2 college tuitions. Now I know why. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Mom was trying to rally support among the guests, her voice carrying across the room. Can't you see what that woman has done to our family? Stella has poisoned my daughter's mind. Mom's playing the victim, I observed, right on schedule. There's something else you need to know. Tyrese lowered his voice. Last year when the coaching position opened up, I told them I wanted to quit. Dad threatened to expose some financial irregularities in my training program accounts. I straightened. What irregularities? The money they took from you? It didn't all go to training. He pulled out his phone, showing me a spreadsheet. They used some of it to cover Dad's gambling debts. I found the records when I was helping Mom organize the home office. The room seemed to spin. They stole my money to cover gambling debts? That's why they're so desperate to maintain control. If this goes to court. He trailed off as Dad approached, his face dark with anger. You've had your fun, Dad growled. Now it's time to end this circus. Or what? I challenged. You'll expose Tyrese's financial records? Tell everyone where my money really went. Dad's face paled. What are you talking about? The gambling debts, Dad. The creative accounting. Did you really think it would stay hidden forever? You told her? Dad turned on Tyrese. After everything we did for you, everything you did for me? Tyrese laughed bitterly. You mean everything you forced me to be? Everything you stole from my sister to cover your mistakes? Stella appeared at my side, her presence steady and strong. Is there a problem here? Stay out of this, Dad snapped. You've caused enough damage. Actually, I said, Stella's the only one who helped me build something instead of stealing from me. Unlike my loving parents who used my college fund to cover illegal gambling debts, the nearby guests fell silent. All pretense of not listening abandoned. Mom hurried over, panic breaking through her composed facade. Sophia, please, she begged. We can discuss this privately, as a family. Family? I gestured around the room. You mean the audience you gathered? The people you invited to watch me return to the path? Well, they're here now, let them hear everything. You wouldn't, Dad threatened. Try me. I turned to address the watching crowd. Would anyone like to hear about how my parents committed fraud? Or how they blackmailed their own son to keep him in a career he hates? Stop. Mom grabbed my arm. Think about what you're doing to this family. Let go of her. Patrick's voice was steel as he separated us. The only thing Sophia's doing is telling the truth. Tyrese stepped forward, and she's not alone anymore. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad looked from me to Tyrese, seeing for the first time that he'd lost control of both his children. You have 24 hours, I said quietly. Either you arrange repayment of my money, or I'll file charges for fraud, your choice. You would send your own father to jail, Mom whispered. You would steal your own daughter's future, I countered. Stella cleared her throat. I believe the bride and groom have a first dance scheduled. Shall we give them the floor? The guests parted as Patrick led me to the dance floor. Over his shoulder I watched my parents retreat to a corner, their perfect family facade finally shattered. You okay? Patrick whispered as we danced. I think so. I looked at Tyrese who stood with Stella, both of them watching our parents with clear eyes. Sometimes the truth hurts more than the lies, but at least it's real. And now we build something new? I smiled up at him. Something honest. The music played on, and for the first time, I felt truly whole. Not because of revenge or justice, but because the truth, all of it, was finally in the light. And in that light, I could see the path forward clearly at last. The check landed on my desk with a soft thud. I stared at the amount. Every penny they'd taken, plus interest. Mom stood across from me, her designer purse clutched tight, her face a mask of carefully controlled emotion. There, she said, it's done. Are you happy now? This was never about happiness. I picked up the check, examining the signature. It was about justice. Justice. She sank into the chair across from my desk. You destroyed our family for justice? No, Mom. You destroyed our family for control. I gestured to my office, to the awards on the wall, to the blueprints spread across my desk. Look around. This is who I am, who I always was, if you'd bothered to see it. I see an ungrateful daughter who what? I interrupted. Who succeeded despite you, who refused to be broken. A knock at the door saved her from responding. Tyrese entered carrying a cardboard box. Found these in Dad's study, he said, placing the box on my desk. All your old architecture competition certificates, the ones they said got lost in the move. Mom's face crumpled. Tyrese, not you too. Yes, me too. He sat down beside her. I quit coaching yesterday, enrolled in a literature program, but your father can't blackmail me anymore. Tyrese smiled. Sophia made sure of that. I pulled out the certificates one by one. Elementary school design competitions, high school awards, the scholarship letter, physical proof of the path they'd tried to erase. We did what we thought was best, Mom whispered. No. I met her eyes. You did what was easiest. Forcing us into your mold was easier than accepting who we really were. And now she looked around my office again, but this time, I saw something different in her expression. Not anger or disappointment, but confusion, maybe even a hint of recognition. Now we move forward, I said separately. I can't fix this, can I? No. But you can learn from it. I handed her one of my old certificates, a Sustainable Design Award from 8th grade. Start by really looking at who your children are, not who you wanted us to be. The door opened again. Stella entered, followed by Patrick. The Thompson contract is ready, Stella announced, then paused, seeing Mom. Oh, I can come back. No, stay. I stood up. Mom was just leaving. Mom rose slowly, clutching the certificate I'd given her. Your father won't accept this, any of it. I know. I walked her to the door. But for the first time in my life, that doesn't matter. After she left, Tyrese pulled out his course catalog. Think it's too late to become a writer? It's never too late to become yourself, Stella said, squeezing his shoulder. Patrick wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I leaned into his embrace, watching Tyrese and Stella discuss literature programs. This was my family now, chosen, not forced, built on truth, not control. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. You'll regret this decision. I showed it to Patrick, who shook his head. Still trying to intimidate you? Old habits die hard. I deleted the message without responding, but so do new dreams. Stella spread the Thompson contract across my desk. Our biggest project yet, a sustainable community that would change the city's skyline, my design, my vision, my future. Ready to build something extraordinary? She asked. I looked at the people around me. My husband who supported my dreams, my brother who found the courage to chase his own, my aunt who showed me what strength looked like, and my own reflection in the window, finally recognizing the woman I'd become. Actually, I said, pulling out a fresh blueprint, I have an even better idea. I sketched quickly. A building that would house both an architectural firm and a writing workshop. A place where dreams wouldn't be buried, but nurtured. What do you think? I showed them the design. A place for people to become who they really are? Tyrese grinned. Can I run the writing program? Only if I get to design the space, I teased. Partners. He offered his hand. Partners. We shook on it, both laughing at how natural it felt. The sun set over the city, casting long shadows through my office windows. Somewhere across town, our parents were probably plotting their next move, trying to regain control they'd never really had. But here, in this space, surrounded by truth and possibility, their power couldn't reach us anymore. We were building something new, not just buildings and books, but a future where dreams weren't stolen, but shared. To new beginnings, Patrick raised his coffee cup. No, I corrected, raising mine to meet his. To being who we always were? We all drank to that, and I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. The war was over, the truth was out, and the future was finally completely ours.